Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Learn with Jason. Today on the show, we've got Tom Ballinger. How you doing, Tom?
Pretty good. Yeah, pretty excited about this. Glad to see. I went back and watched some archives. So I'd seen some of your show before, but pretty excited about writing some code. I can talk first, but excited about getting to some code.
Yeah, I'm very excited about this one as well. I think this is going to be really fun. But before we start talking about what we're going to be building today, let's talk a little bit about you. So, for folks who aren't familiar with you and your work, do you want to give us a bit of a background?
Sure. Yeah. Let's see. And I want to say it's a little similar to where you were at some point. I was doing, it wasn't PHP, it was Python, doing web stuff. And then you want to make things a little more interactive. And it's, of course, it's post Google Maps, like JavaScript's out there. You can make dynamic apps with it. I just haven't done that yet. And so starting to play with that was, I was maybe 12 years ago or so. And then been in a variety of places since. So was at the Recurse Center for a long time, which was like let's work, let's find a way to work together or not work together, just work on stuff instead of having a class. Let's just whatever it was you wanted to learn. And in the 3.5 years I was there, it was very much like, yeah, JavaScript's a lot of it. And then I was at Dropbox for a bit, and that's where I met some of the founders of Convex. We all met there, and was doing, again, front-endy kind of stuff. We were porting the desktop client from, had been kind of Python and native stuff. We were porting it to something like Electron, where now the UI is going to be JavaScript. And so sort of building, a little bit infrastructure, but mostly product. And then I've been also doing product front-endy JavaScript since.
Yeah. And so let's talk a little bit about Convex, because Convex is a bit perplexing. Yeah, Anthony in the chat just called it perplexing, and I think I would agree with that sentiment, because it seems magical. And what I mean by that is it looked like there wasn't enough setup for what it was capable of doing when I looked at the doc, and I only looked for a minute. But so I'm coming in with 2 data points. One is I looked at the homepage and I was like, dang, that looks like magic. And 2 is that Convex is part of the Jamstack Innovation Fund, which is a fund that Netlify put together. And so obviously there's a big vote of confidence from Matt and Chris, our founders at Netlify, in the future of Convex, which is, a huge plus. And y'all are going to be at the at Jamstack Conf, so I'm going to do a shameless plug for Jamstack Conf. Y'all should go to it. So let's talk a little bit about maybe just high level elevator pitch. What is Convex?
Sure. Yeah. I say Convex is a hosted backend and database. And so backend as a service is a thing you might be familiar with. I tell people, think Firebase, right? The idea that a web browser can talk directly to your database somewhere. It can get that information and send it right to the browser. Although if you do that, you need a little bit more logic where you say, well, don't just dump this whole database table. I actually want derived data based on that thing. And then we see it as continuing the reactive, declarative, mostly reactive. Declarative is part of it, but mostly reactive data flow all the way to the back end. So when a table changes, and then therefore a API response would have changed based on that table data changing, I would like my app, all my users' apps in the browser, that should update live. That's kind of the high level, is taking the reactive data flow you have in React or a lot of other things and taking it all the way to the database.
Gotcha. Okay. So that is, like, I love the pitch. So what I saw was very minimal setup to make this work. And so what I'm kind of curious about is, how did you think about this API when you were designing it? Because what I saw from it was almost like you install this and you just start writing queries. It was like, there's not the boilerplate, there's not the kind of elaborate setup. So what was your big inspiration when you were looking at the API for Convex?
Sure. Yeah. Well, there's a lot to draw from, right? Like our 2 big hooks are use query and use mutation. And obviously we didn't come up with those names or those ideas. The idea that you would want to have a declarative view of your data. You want, just give me the most updated thing. And if you're using React Query or using SWR, it's going to be something that is updating. Maybe it's every time, this view loads, or maybe it's every 20 seconds in addition to every time that you foreground that browser tab or something. And this is just that same idea, but continued further to, no, the moment that it changes, that's when I want that update there. So it's that same, a lot of the benefits are similar, where I get to have the declarative view of, say, give me my data here, but it is that instant thing, which is nicer. And what we're inspired by, I mean, the system sort of is inspired by having built systems like this, where you end up getting a WebSocket, so you stream things to the browser so that it can be updating live, building that over and over, sort of saying like, okay, it seems like that is a model we like, because when I was at Observable, we built something like this. When I was at Reduct, we built something like this. When my colleague Alex was at Asana, they built something like this, and then they scaled it really far. So saying, okay, that is a format that works. Besides that, like we've all seen, use query. It's a heckin' great idea. It's great.
Heckin' great.
Yeah, it's terrific. It's excellent. So it was that's the API that you want. You want to bind data to your React components. And I think, that's the big idea. It was like, this thing is everywhere, that part of it. The simple setup, I'm curious about, because it's great to hear that the setup feels simple. Some of that simplicity is that you get to write imperative code. You get to write JavaScript. JavaScript takes the place of SQL and some other databases. And that's one aspect of the simplicity, where if you want, say, a transaction, you say, oh, I want to do this thing and this thing, but if the second thing doesn't work, roll that all back. Or I want consistency, where this query and that query, you need to make them at the same time, because if I got a result at different timestamps, it would be annoying because my foreign keys wouldn't match up or whatever back up in my browser. Those are the pieces that I guess are, uniform. Like when you're using a database, right, a data storage of any kind, these things come up and we say, great, how could we take care of that for you? And the simple thing seems to be, when I was doing data engineering a bit at Dropbox, this comes up a lot. I have complex logic that I need to express within a transaction. How do I do that? Oh, I write SQL. And so you end up translating complicated logic to SQL. And so we're saying, let's write that logic in JavaScript. It's still a transaction. And then that can kind of pop out in your browser. I'm not sure if I'm kidding it. I'm taking your question of how do you do it with, what was the inspiration for the API, and just listing simple things.
No, I think that's sort of, this is the part that gets interesting to me is every tool is built on a worldview. And so, if you look at certain tools, they are fully batteries included. There's no configuration whatsoever to do. So a really good example of this is say Wix. If you use Wix, there is no option to not just use the abstraction. You're bought in, it does the thing that it does, and that's the goal. That's the idea, is you as the person consuming the tool don't have to understand how it works to use it. And then there's the other side, which is you get a collection of utilities and you have to assemble those utilities. You need a ton of contextual knowledge. Contextual, I don't know why I pronounced it like that, but you need a ton of additional knowledge in order to assemble these tools properly, because you don't get instructions for how they fit together. You just get, this utility solves this and this utility solves this. You have to write the glue code. And there's a spectrum kind of between those two. I guess there's even further where you're literally building those utilities yourself. I tend to think that gets into a bit of absurdity when you find yourself rebuilding everything from scratch. Like you're causing yourself pain. But I do think, there's a good conversation to be had about where in the spectrum does someone sit where they feel is the proper place for a tool to live. In databases right now are kind of going through what I would call a full renaissance, where it felt like databases were a pretty sleepy technology for a long time. Like people were innovating, but you would kind of see like, okay, you've either got a SQL database or you've got a NoSQL database, and they all effectively work the same. You got to get your database drivers, you got to spin up database architecture, you got to kind of think about how do you scale this, how do you do replication, how do you do database sharding, all these things that are very like DBA or database architect focused, deep expertise. And that part, it just kind of felt like the way things were. But we've seen this very almost Cambrian explosion of different thought around how data storage can work on the web, whether it's really simple key value stores in like edge platforms, or whether it's a complete reimagining of SQL like we're seeing in Planet Scale. There's all these spots along the spectrum where people are looking at data storage and saying, no, it can be better. So what I'm really interested in is the various different approaches that we're seeing from Convex, from Planet Scale, from Fauna, from Supabase, Firebase, and like, how do we think about data? Where's the right place for data to sit in the tool chain, and how much should somebody need to know about data in order to use it?
Totally.
And I think that's
yeah.
so what you're talking about, the way that you're kind of bringing up this idea that, JavaScript is how you write a transaction. That's great, because if you tell me to go write a transaction in SQL, I'm hosed. There's no way I can do it, but I can figure out how to do it in JavaScript because I know JavaScript. And so I think this is the sort of thing that that I find really fascinating, is how we're bringing these more advanced concepts forward.
Totally. And when you talk about some of those, sorry to interrupt, but just the pieces I hear when you're mentioning, like, okay, yeah, dealing with this sharding, dealing with all these complications, that is very much what the founders were doing of Convex were doing at Dropbox. It was like, hey, we need to store multi exabytes of data. Great, let's build the system that does that. Or we need, and it was really this stuff where it does you get into that they are building their own tools, right? They are doing, or they're building layers and layers and layers on top of MySQL because it's good at some of those things. And it really was a focus on, wow, we had to do a lot of work for this. And like, maybe if you're really doing it at Dropbox scale, it does have to be done like that, but most of the time it doesn't. And of course, the goal is that even that doesn't have to be, right? You should be able to have, we should be able to design something from the ground up for web development, and it should work for that. And so both the API I was excited about from having built the WebSocket servers before, but then let's build this in an architecture that will scale from people that have scaled this before, so that nobody else has to worry about that again. Of course, not nobody, but so that I don't have to worry about it when I go to build an app.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's the piece that I find really exciting about right now, is that we're starting to find, especially in web dev, like, there were things that we were doing that were very bespoke, where, when I worked at IBM, we had a whole team dedicated to DevOps and the management and rollout of our databases, of our servers, of all the glue code that held all those pieces together. And it was a ton of work, and it was frustrating for everybody. It was frustrating for the ops people. It was frustrating for the front end developers waiting for the ops people because they were overloaded. You had to deal with these inconsistencies because, like, there just was a constraining factor of literal hours in the day that prevented us from getting unlimited staging in dev environments, from being able to like experiment with production like environments. We were always kind of hacking these side environments, and then you had to port them into the production environment. A lot of question marks and complexity. And it feels like we've all started to collectively realize as an industry that is a silly thing to do for the web. The web works the same way under the hood. You have to get some static files up to a server. You need to scale those servers globally. You need to make sure that the things are up and accessible and cacheable and fast. And then when you get to your services, you need some kind of business logic layer, whether that's serverless, edge functions, a long running server, and then you need some kind of data access. And each of those pieces is not unique. Like, the way that a database functions in a website is not unique. I need to be able to read, write, update, delete data. That's it, right? And when you start looking at those functionalities, and you realize that every single company was being forced to employ these ultra specialized developers to just do the same work that every other team was having to do, it's frustrating. It's a huge waste of time and talent. Like, those ops engineers should be focused on the uniquely valuable thing in your business, which is our database up? Like, is our database optimized? Is the way that we're managing this infrastructure, or the way that our backend services are being built and deployed, that's where their talent is necessary, because that's unique. That's the value of the business.
Totally.
Scaling a database, who cares? It's a commodity. And so that's the piece that I love to see the innovation in, is we're taking all of these chores and we're turning them into businesses so that developers get to build value instead of doing the yak shaving to get to the value. And for anybody who just heard the term yak shaving, let me send everybody a quick link to an article about it that I wrote. So anyway, so it sounds like where Convex came from was from that pain being felt at Dropbox and other places around, all what we just talked about. So
Totally.
how, like, every tool has a sweet spot, I think. And so when you're thinking about Convex, what is the sweet spot for it?
Sure. Yeah. Well, right now it is, hey, I have data. I want to store it somewhere. I want to get it back. And that's a cop out because like that is the general thing. That's what everybody wants. But it is I'm writing an app and the like what appears on my web page really is a function of what's in the database. And if that's the case, like you want this system, then you need to start layering in other things when you say, and also I'm a live streaming service. So I need to have servers that do video stuff. I'm like, okay, we don't host streams yet. Or we have, there are all these special things where, when you spike out and you say, actually, my company has basic CRUD needs, and it would be nice to build these apps kind of live updating. And also we have this other thing, which we have to have a whole system for, we have some other piece that is different. And so there's where you'd pair Convex with something else, or maybe you do it all custom, where you say, I need deep integration with something really, really different. So we've had some teams that use Convex. They say, okay, well, we've got our existing ML infrastructure that had all this stuff going on, but now we want to build another thing. And this thing, it's just, it's live collaboration. So it's a little interesting, but it's not that interesting. It is not the point of our company was to be doing ML infrastructure. We are going to do our own or post or whatever. We're going to build our platform for that. And we're going to use Convex because that's how we're going to store the metadata about this, or that's how we're going to, build a little administrative UI or something.
So you're seeing Convex as sort of the almost like the kind of glue utility layer for the data storage operations that just kind of inevitably crop up no matter what you're building.
I think so. Right.
And
Which means, so you say this, yeah.
Is there like a specific use case that, or I guess, is there a threshold that you need to clear where it makes sense to reach for Convex, or a point beyond which you wouldn't reach for Convex? Like, are there error bars for where you wouldn't use it?
Yeah, I mean, I think right now it's closer to the latter. It is like, wow, it really is quick to get started. This platform, I can understand wanting to wait until there's a customer bigger, much bigger than you. They can say, look, like X is a $2 billion company and it's built on Convex. Like, of course, you wait for that before you build your own $2 billion company or something. But
sure.
I think it is, you reach the limits of, okay, I can see where I would like these other features, and now I need to build them myself. Now we think that it's a modular thing in some ways, where you need your own, effectful lambdas, and you say, oh, well, great, here's how you plug in those lambdas. But we realize, we have to offer those on our platform, because
I got you.
It really does. Yeah, it is a bummer when you say, I really like these features, but once I have to step outside and I'm outside the system, it's no longer as useful. But the goal would be, no, it really still is useful to have this data be reactive. It really is, it's a better way to build UI. I'm doing the classic cop out, like, yes, absolutely, you should use our tool for everything. But right now, I am most excited about it. I'm building something from scratch, or I'm adding to an existing tool, just one page where I need some live collaboration, or I just need this data to update live, and I don't want to worry about it too much. So right now I'd say it's greenfield stuff. It's like, I need to put the data somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah. So optimizing for speed. If you are rapidly prototyping, you're trying to spike something, you're trying to validate an idea, this is, the way that you can get from the fastest way from idea to production is what you're betting on right now.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, because the founders would all say, no, we're the database people. Like, the goal was to build a Firebase that would scale. Like, that's what we're doing. And so I have to be careful. But what I'm excited about it for is I like building small toys. I like building, and they'd say, like, it's not for toys. This really is a big thing. Like, this is the point of this. It was designed, the architecture of this is, it's both designed from the bottom up for web developers, but also within the constraint of, but it does need to scale. And there are a lot of interesting things there. Yeah, that like hamstring it a little bit. It's like, you could do this and it would be perfect. But in order to scale, we will need to do these things because these folks have built that stuff before.
So this is actually you're stepping into something that's probably more of a rabbit hole than we want to get into, but it's the classic conundrum of developer tooling startups. Because whenever you have a developer tooling startup, the people who are the most engaged with developer tooling are developers, and their needs don't exactly align to the needs of the companies that will eventually become
Yes.
the paying customers. And so you're
Absolutely.
trying to
Yeah.
find the right way to both serve the needs of like a developer who wants to play and experiment and move fast and learn things, and also serve the needs of these companies that need to scale and be enterprise ready and be secure. And what a lot of companies, including, I make this mistake all the time where you sort of conflate these things and you find yourself talking to a developer and you're talking about like ISO 27001 certification. And they're like, I
Right.
could
Here's our
literally
checklist.
care
Yeah.
less about what.
Right.
And so I think this is a fun, I don't know, there's maybe like a meta episode on this on positioning for dev tooling startups, because that's a whole rabbit hole that we could fall into.
Totally.
But I don't want to burn all of our time on that, because I actually really want to have a lot of room for playing with this, because since Convex is reactive data, it means that today, chat, if you behave, this can be an interactive episode where we'll be able to do some live things. And I want to make sure we've got enough time to do that. So if you don't mind, I'm going to take us over into pair programming view. Are you good with that?
Great. Yeah. Sounds great.
All right. I'm going to switch us over if I can find the button. Here it is. And okay. So before we get into it, let's talk a little bit about the captioning. We've got Vanessa with us today from White Coat Captioning. Thank you very much for being here. That's made possible through the support of our sponsors, Netlify, NX, and New Relic, and coming soon, Pluralsight. Make sure you keep an eye on this logo bar. It's going to be updating soon. We are talking to Tom Ballinger. Make sure you go and give a follow on Twitter. I don't know why my browser just decided that I can only see mobile Twitter, but look at this. If I go here, I'm like, hey, I don't want to be on mobile Twitter. And it's like, yeah, you do.
Yeah, you do. We know better than you.
So that's fun. We're talking about convex.dev today, so you can go and find the details over there. If you're having fun today and you want to learn more about Convex, you should come out to Jamstack Conf. Some of the Convex teams are going to be there, and we're going to have some more details on it. And then I talked about this yak shaving post that I already shared a link to, so I won't share it again. If you want to see these captions, they are on the homepage at learnwithjason.dev. So you can head over there. I also found out that I might be able to get the closed caption button on Twitch to work. I'm really excited about it. I'm digging into how to make it work. Hopefully soon we will have full-blown actual captions toggleable on and off in the show on stream. That'll be amazing. So, fingers crossed I can figure that out. So, y'all, I'm excited. Let's do this. So I'm going to go over to the convex.dev page. Tom, what should I do first?
I'd go to quick start. I would visit the docs and say, I think I know what's going on. I'm not going to read these docs, or Tom's going to help me so I don't have to read them. So
correct. That's how I roll.
I'd hop to quick start, and then unless we have some existing project we're converting, I would start with these instructions. So
all right. So I'm going to pop this over here. I'm going to pull up my my terminal, make sure that I've got enough window, and let's do this. So I'm going to first just copy paste. So let's do a next app, and I'm going to call this, what should we call this? What are we building today?
Yeah, I mean, something sort of chatty was the thought, right? To make it interactive, but it could be, I don't know. That's the problem with names. You pin yourself down, and it's like then we got to build that.
Let's start. Let's do reactive toy. How about
Excellent.
that?
Great. That'll get me in trouble because we're not supposed to be for toys, but I think we're in toys. So yeah, do it.
And on this show, we don't take anything seriously, so we would call the enterprise database a toy.
Excellent. Great.
So let's see. We're gonna run through the create next app flow here, and this E, that is a example. Is that the idea?
Yeah, exactly. So that'll pull from the I think from the repo, not even the last published version, but like I just published an update to this the other day, and it's just pulling down that project from from like the canary branch, they call it, or from the latest next thing.
Nice. Let's see here.
And ideally, this should be a small enough project that it is, it's not too much of a cheat to be starting with an existing project. We can look at the different pieces so that we're not, because we may, if the goal was to build a chat app, if I remember right, we might just have one after this. So we'll want to understand it, and then we can poke at it.
Okay, so I'm in here. We've already installed everything. Yes, there's node modules. So we can npm run dev. And
cool. So we skipped a step here. We were supposed to do npx convex init, but this was a good test of our just the start here. Oh, I see. Okay, no, this is a bug. It's telling you, hey, this is how to start, which is true. But back in the quick start, there's one more thing we need to run first.
Oh, over here. And okay, gotcha. npx convex init.
Yeah. Great, and we're going to go through a flow where you create an account.
Open in browser, nice. Okay, I'm opening in browser. Device confirmation.
Looks the same to me.
Yeah.
If you're good, you'll actually read it, right?
I totally read it.
Yeah, every character.
Okay, so
this is giving you an
set.
account. Yeah, this is an account on our, because you're not running the database, we're running it for you. We need to give you the tools to see what the data in there is.
Do I agree to the?
I can vouch for them, but yeah, I thought they were pretty reasonable when I read them.
Good. All right, I'm in. So we'll give it the same name as our repo. I have 4 projects remaining. That's cool. Okay.
Cool. Yeah, just from free projects.
And so now if I go back, I have. Okay, so we have to run a different command here.
Yeah, and we're actually going to need 2 terminals for now.
Okay.
We're working on a thing right now to make it just one, but we're going to need to run both the npm run dev for the front end, and then the npx convex dev for the back end.
Okay.
Cool. And that one's, people have seen that before.
So that's ready.
Okay, so in theory, yeah.
Here's our project.
Great. This is good. It's not a chat app. It's a counter. So we'll actually have to write some code. That's good.
Oh, but look at this. So we have persistent state. So I'm adding, and doing whatever I just did there. And then when I reload the page, we've got the flash, which we can, that's a thing we can fix, but then it brings back that state. So we have already persistent state, which is super exciting. So I want to
I want to emphasize it. I kind of want to say, oh, open 2 tabs so we can see it in both, or open the dashboard on dashboard.convex.dev.
Okay,
so you can see
all right. No, I like this. But
you've got the essence of it, right? It is like, it must be coming from somewhere.
But hold on, if it's in 2 tabs.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that, y'all. That's cool. So that's that reactivity right out of the gate. So now what I'm curious about is how this actually works. Okay, I made a mistake in here. So I need to Control Z. Let's get init. Yes. Then I'm going to close this, and then I'm going to open it again so that that's better. And now I'm going to foreground this so that we bring back our npm run dev. So I'm hitting Control Z here to suspend the process so that I can do stuff and then bring it back. That's not a thing that anybody needs to care about, but I like it, and I figured I'd explain myself. Okay, so walk us through this. What has happened in this example?
So somewhat, I'm going to assume some knowledge of React and maybe a little bit of Next. The gist in Next, right, is that there's a pages directory, and when you open the app, you're going to be sent to this next thing.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just going to fire up a quick... You going to do the thing? Do the thing. There we go. All right. So now I have a live share set up. I'm going to go throw this...
Oh, sweet. Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to go throw this into your thing.
Awesome.
There's in the ping window, there's a chat, so I'll just throw that in here.
Sweet.
And so now you and I will both be in here, and then if you want to kind of give us a quick tour, I can follow you around.
Cool. Let me, oops, I just got to move that to another computer here. Let's see, can I send direct messages to myself? New message. I'm just only logged in on Twitter on this other device. Now let's find out.
Yes, you absolutely can DM yourself.
Terrific. That's what I'm doing with this. Okay, DM'd. And I'm back over here. Oh, it's not showing up my top list. I probably have to open it. Oh no, failed to send. All right, maybe I can't. I'm going to just send it to my good friend.
Oops, that's not the thing.
Hey, please don't steal.
So this one is a private window too, and it's still synced. So no stateful stuff happening here. This is cool. This is very cool. And so I'm going to poke around in a couple things here while I'm waiting for you to get joined up.
Great.
And I think it should show me as soon as you arrive. There you are. So yeah, let me just follow you and I'll full screen this. And why don't you give us a tour?
Great. Yeah, so I'll start with, in a next app, you've got this index dot. Actually, I have to ask about the flipped showing the file tree on the right. I bet this is the thing I ask questions about. Why file tree on the right?
Okay, I'm going to show you. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Collapsed, open, collapsed, open.
Oh,
and my code
your
didn't move.
text doesn't jump around. Okay, that's obvious. That's just correct, isn't it? Okay. Excellent point. That seems like the right way to do it. Yes, the gist is, right, I've got a next page, and unfortunately there are, because we wanted to keep it close to the next examples, there's some other stuff in here. There's a thing called CSS. We use it to style stuff, whatever. Down here, we've got a button, and we've got where's our use query?
Up at the top, right?
Oh, of course. The way that React code works is often we put the declarative stuff at the bottom. Yeah, so up here, two really interesting lines. This one says, hey, the string get counter, I want to call that with the argument clicks. And that may return undefined because we're not server-side rendering this right now. It might come back initially. The WebSocket hasn't connected yet. It might be undefined. If it is, use 0. Otherwise, get the value from that, stick it in this counter thing. Also, create a function called increment that I'm getting from this use mutation. And that is, I'm not calling that code yet, but this is a callback that I could use to increment that thing. That actually takes arguments. So on the next line, I'm creating a new callback where I say increment. The first argument to increment is clicks, and the second argument is 1. We could, bump it up by more at a time if we want. And this, just some I want to call it React noise, but in interest, we don't really need to have that here. We could pop that out if we're not worried about these re-renders. And then down in our code, we just have a button that calls that thing, and then counter is just data, so we can just render that. So I keep scrolling down to the React stuff, but it's really, these are the interesting bits. We're saying counter is that live data. Use query is a hook. Imagine there's probably a use effect somewhere in there that causes this, or a state, or something that causes this thing to re-render when there is new data. That re-renders this component, and then we get that new update. And that's just like telling you about React, right? If you're familiar with, but the gist is it's a hook, and that means we can update this thing when we need to.
And is this, so I ran that npx convex init. Is this all of the code? Because I'm seeing that we're importing use query and use mutation from the generated.
Yep. Yeah. So the generated's coming from, that's something that it happened to be in the repo, but the Convex dev thing would create it. No, there is two other files that are pretty important that we need to look at.
Okay.
So this is here, in the UI. Hopefully this is a reasonable interface for saying, just always give me the updated value of counter. That means if this thing's updating quickly, it's going to re-render a lot of times.
How did the so walk me through the arguments here. So we've got get counter and increment counter. Are these arbitrary identifiers? I can call them whatever I want, or do I have to call them a certain thing?
Totally. They correspond to, and if we have the TypeScript support set up, we'll get nice completion and everything. But they are strings that I'm gonna chance it. Let's just see. If I type a quote here and I type get, I'm not seeing it.
Let me check if I think sometimes here it is. It works.
Okay,
it works for me.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
But so if you let me take over for a
Yeah, yeah, go
second,
for it. Yeah.
I'll quote, and it shows
Great.
me get counter here.
Cool.
And then what was it?
And
It
then we had a
was
second argument, which looks like it's supposed to be a counter
counter
name. And
name.
the counter we were modifying was called clicks before.
Okay.
And then we were returning a number. And if we want to not render undefined, we can do the question mark 0. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
All
So
right.
yeah, you're saying decoding those. So get counter and increment counter correspond to some file-based routing that happens in the Convex folder. And that's where we define our backend.
Got you. Okay. So I see a Convex folder up here.
Cool. Yeah, yeah. Let's jump in there.
Okay. So I'm still following you. So if you hop in there, we'll
Cool.
go with you.
Great. So we've got a get counter here, and we've got some kind of fancy syntax, not too bad. This is our transaction that runs on the database that says, great, this is, I call it a query. This is a view. This is like if you were hitting a get endpoint, probably eventually in your Node app, we'd get down to the SQL that did something like this. And we can walk through this, but while we're talking about it, increment counter is the other one. This is the one saying, great, this is the code that will run every time we send in that message. And these are kind of different because increment counter, pretty reasonable. It runs every time we call that function because that's going to send a WebSocket message. The Convex backend will run that thing. Get counter is pretty special in that it will run, you can imagine it running maybe like 10 times a second or something. And we're doing cool read set watching in the database to make this efficient. But the idea is this thing's really running all the time. If this would get a different result, it will run again.
And so, the query itself is coming in from the generated server. Okay, I get that. And it gives us, we run the query and we have to pass a function into the query that does the query logic.
Exactly,
so we get a database. All right, that makes sense. We get the counter name, which this is arbitrary. We can name it whatever we want.
Yep. If we change that name right now, we'd see it update back in the auto completion on the other side. Yeah.
Right. And so then we have the table, which I'm assuming we've defined somewhere else that we'll look at shortly.
Well, yeah. I'll say roughly yes. Yeah.
Okay. So we're querying the table.
That's interesting too.
We're filtering by the name, which is the counter name. So whatever we name it, like we could have multiple counters on the same page as long as we pass in a different counter identifier. And then it pulls the first entry. So we're doing like an append. So it's not like a single entry that we're actually updating. We're just literally saying like the clicks count is 5, the clicks count is 6, and we're just grabbing the most recent one.
I could see from this query, I could see why is what you would assume. There's actually just one row in this. Let's go ahead and actually look at the schema. So if we go to that dashboard, if you go to dashboard.convex.dev in a browser, it should come up with.
Is that linked
you logged in with
here?
GitHub? Should be. If you want to open another terminal, you could type convex.dashboard. There's a command to get it, but.
That's cool. That's all good. Let me.
We should. That's a good feedback. We should
dashboard.
Do that. Dashboard.convex. Yep.
Okay. And I've already authorized, so I think this will just. Yep. There we go.
Cool.
And here's my project.
Yeah. So this can answer your question now. This is the counter table, and we're looking at it, and we see, it looks like it has 4 columns. 2 of them are kind of fancy. They've got those underscores before them. The other 2 are. On a JavaScript object, I'd call this a document store. So I would describe these as there are 2 properties on this document, on this object, which are counter and name. But colloquially, and also like it's a relational database. We can have relations and everything. I'll just describe it as a row of this table. So there's only one row on this table right now. And once we read the mutation, we'll see that it actually is updating that one row. And so we get more rows if we made more counters. But at the moment, there's really just one row.
So coming back in here, then this first is just to break it out of being an array. Is that right?
Yes, exactly.
Got it. Yep. Okay. I understand that.
And the other interesting piece here, we're doing this query builder stuff, which means this query can be more efficient. But this query doesn't really need to be efficient. Something we could do here, and I would, if we're starting out, that I'd probably do instead is I'm going to just delete all of this and just say dot collect and say, let's just get the whole thing and then take the first item, right? We're
I
allowed
gotcha.
to, and it's going to say like, oh, it's there might not be a first item. So, we could say something like counters. I won't do it because we need that next line where we're actually we need to update this data too. But the thing I'm excited about here is you can just use JavaScript to describe these queries.
Gotcha.
We're pushing it down to the database for efficiency. If you want to be able to say, don't do a full table scan, there might be a million rows in there. I can describe this. There are indexes. We can cleverly just get the right rows. But when I'm prototyping, I'll start with a select star. Yeah. Because then that way, when all my logic in here is JavaScript, it's quicker to iterate. I get to say like, oh, it's just JavaScript. I know how to take the first element of array. I know how to say, is this array of length 0? Great, do this other thing, all that.
Okay. So let's maybe pop into this increment counter and
Great.
break down how that's working.
Yeah, this one's a little bigger, it looks like. Again, we've got that line 4, which is kind of fancy, but the gist is just, it's the name of the mutation. So increment counter was when we used the hook, use mutation. Counter name increment were just the next arguments to that. This is, of course, just to back up, this is a function running on the server. Anytime that we call our, every time that increment gets called back here.
And so I think that actually answers a question here, which is back in this index, we have what looks like built-in code, but this is actually userland code. We defined the signature for these, or not for this one, but for this one here, increment.
Right.
We defined what this is. And so that, like, when we use the query, we're passing in the counter name, right? So we're calling this query, and then that's the argument for it. And then when we use a mutation, we're passing in the query name, and then we have an arbitrary function, which is this one here. Like, we're passing in the increment function. Okay, so that part makes sense, and that helps connect some dots on like how these things are defined. So let me go back to following you, and let's walk through the logic. So we've got the counter doc, same general deal, exact same as the query.
We happen to know. It looks like we don't have. Sorry, we were distracted by another message. Right, we're going to say, okay, and this is an async thing here, this whole expression. We're going to query the counter table, find again the row where the name is equal to the counter name that we passed in. So this is like a where clause where we're saying select the right row in a SQL statement. Then we have to see, okay, was there anything there? If not, and this is the piece where when you were asking, oh, this must be defined somewhere else. Right now, there's not a schema that is saying that there is a thing called counter table. The only reason there's a counter table back on the dashboard is that these 4 lines of code ran, causing us to do the insert.
Okay, so this starts feeling sort of like Mongo-y, right? Like what you call the document store. So I don't need to define a schema. I just need to say, put some stuff in here. So this is one of those things that I think causes very active debates where, for speed and just being able to get up and go, it is really hard to beat this where the code defines the schema. For long-term maintainability, people would argue that strict schema and the migrations and all the things that need to be there are going to help as you scale and grow. How did y'all land on this? Because I know that, one of the things that you mentioned the founders are into is scale. So when you're looking at document stores and this sort of like schema defined in code, how do you think about that?
Totally. And I would, well, I don't want to argue against where I'm going, but it's maybe even worse. It's defined in code, and then it's defined based on whether this line of code is ever run. It's kind of based on the history of this stuff running, which does scare me a bit, but it also feels great. So what we do is, if you hop back to the dashboard, we can see that down here, if you go to the bottom left, there's a generate schema button. And this is code that you would dump in a new file called schema.ts. And once you do that, first of all, your TypeScript completion gets a lot better, because right now when you access this table, we can't say like, I don't know, that has to do with the actual data. I don't know what you put in there. So basically the overall approach was add a schema later. Some people, the very first thing they do when they're designing the data model will be create the schema, and that's fine, but it is optional. And in this example, we're showing, hey, you don't need to have a schema if you don't want. But likely, and most of the, for me, it's once I'm on a team with more than one person, or really once it's over the course, it's all in my head for the 1 hour I'm coding. And then if I have to code on this again tomorrow, I'd kind of like a schema.
Yeah. And that makes it like, what I like about this, because this feels like it gives me a little bit of the like have your cake and eat it too model, because early I really don't like the restrictions of like every time crap, that's not going to work the way I thought. Let me rewrite this code. If I also have to back out some schema stuff and burn down my table and start again, it just gets so cumbersome to build. So I love the idea of being able to just be a complete chaos monkey the whole time that you're initially working out the idea. And then once you land on something that you're like, okay, I'm going to stick with this, then you generate the schema and lock things down. And that feels, I do like that. It's, it feels good. I mean, obviously you have to have the discipline to actually do that and say, yes, now I'm going to lock myself down. But it feels better than just throwing yourself a complete, like, all right, I'm going to, it's like the idea of, the way when you build for yourself, you almost never follow all the best practices of working on a team because they just take too long. Like, no, I'm not going to do TDD when I'm like prototyping, but you probably should, right? But it's so dang cumbersome to do it that you don't. And I think what I like about this is it kind of lets you be irresponsible at the beginning without the trade-off of like, okay, now I need to go rewrite everything to be responsible. I like that.
Totally.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I'm with you.
And this is, this generated schema is kind of nice. It is based on what we see in the table. It may be that you have mixed data types in that table, in which case your schema is not going to be as strict as you probably want it. So in this case, if we wanted a schema, we could just copy and paste that in.
For sure.
Probably fine here. But you do have to look at the data. It doesn't solve all the problems. You still may have mixed data in your database. You have to decide what to do with it.
Right.
When you're prototyping, you just hit the clear table button and it works great. When you have real data in there, it's like, oh, I've got to write my migration. I need to think about how I do this stuff. Then,
of course.
Right. So probably you want a schema before you get to that point. The other thing that's unlocked by schemas is indexes. So once you have enough data that you want to be able to describe, hey, ahead of time, I'm going to be doing this kind of query. We have a little index builder as well as the query builder. We can say, great, please, maintain this information so that these queries can be efficient. And that's all this stuff that we would like you to do when you need it, I guess, or when you're ready for that structure.
All right, so we've got like 40 minutes left, and I want to make sure we build something. Right, is there anything else we need to review before we dive in and start building?
That's pretty much it. I can hand wave and say the rest of this is like either create. This is upsert. This is either create a document, or if it's already there, modify it and update it by adding one to it. So not too fancy going on here.
Okay, so here's what I think we should do. Here's my pitch. We've got a lot of people who I'm sure would love to make a mess of anything that we build if we can publish it and get it to them live. So we've got this basic setup here. Could we, chat, don't make me regret this, could we make an actual chat room that people could just, how do you handle auth actually? Like, can we do a login real quick?
Yeah, it'd be like a Google Auth or something. The example we have in the docs is for Auth0, which lets you use Google or a variety of other things.
Okay. Do we have enough time for that? That might be a stretch.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's kind of fun to start without auth, but it is very reasonable to I mean, the other thing is when there's messages in there we don't like, we can go to the dashboard and change a Boolean for whether to display it or not or something. But yeah, it's true. Like, I think it's totally reasonable to throw an auth. Yeah, we can absolutely do auth. It's just it's going to be your skills clicking through dialogues, which I'm sure I'm sure you're excellent at.
Have a lot of practice. Okay, so here's what I want to do then. I want to very quickly mock up a chat form. So we want a basic form. That form is going to include a label, HTML4 name. And that one will probably want to be auto-filled, but we'll get it like this. And then it's also going to be name, and type text. And then we'll want another one of these. I guess this one's going to be a text area. So we can do a label HTML for chat message, or we'll just say message. And that one is going to be like this. We'll do a text area with an ID of message and a name of message. And we'll do, I guess we don't really need anything else on that, do we? So then that gives us our name and our message. Get rid of that random thing. And for the barest of styles, let's give this form a class name of chat. Get in here and say, go with chat is going to be actually no style. So we'll go for label input text area. Text area, and we'll do a width 100 and a display block. And then we need to go and apply that to our form. So it actually needs to be styles chat.
Cool. Oh, wait, yeah, you did it in home. Yeah, I was going to say that. Perfect.
Okay. So
great.
Not, not beautiful, but not
great.
the worst.
Yeah.
It'll function. So what I want to do then is I want to take this and hook it up to Convex. And then I guess we'll need another piece here, which will be, let's go with a div class name, styles, chat log.
Oh yeah, let's show the chat. Great.
And each one of these, I think, will need to be like how do we want to do this? We'll probably just make them like paragraphs, right? So it'll be a paragraph with a span. Give it a styles like author.
Yeah, sure.
And for now we can, test user, and then we'll do another one for message, and we'll say like something awesome.
Cool.
And we probably want these paragraphs, so we can do a class and you know what? We'll leave the paragraph fine. Yeah. So if we come in here,
help us out.
We can do.
I really appreciate. Yeah, you're going a lot faster in this than I would. This is great.
Let's go with the chat log. The chat log is going to be. We'll give it a height of like 300. Let's give it a border of 1 pixel solid black so that we can actually see it, and we'll do an overflow Y of scroll so that as people type, we'll be able to keep doing all that. Cool. And then we can do an author. Oh no, I want to do chat log. P is going to have a display flex. We'll do a justify content. Flex start, that's actually the default, so we don't need to fix that. We'll do a gap of like 1 rem.
Is it justify content instead of justify?
You are correct, yeah.
I got the tailwind is too strong.
Okay, so then we'll do author will be a width of, we'll say like 100 pixels, and we'll do an overflow X of hidden, or can you do? Nah, well, whatever. We'll just do hidden. That'll be fine.
Great.
Short so now we've got overflow, and let's also make it text align right. Okay, so we can make this shorter. Let's make it 60. Nope.
Sweet.
80. There we go.
Great.
Okay.
Great.
So this is our going to be our general setup here. We've got we've got a chat log. Let's also make this, and that way we've got a little differentiation of what's going on here.
That's great.
Okay. So ultra high design, but I want to hook this thing up. I want to get it running, and this is so this will be our template for a chat message, and this is the piece that we need to hook up to the database, which means I need to create a query and a mutation, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So
we could modify the existing ones, or we can be good and create new ones, which is pretty reasonable.
Create new ones. Let's do.
Sounds great.
Do get
the names will make sense.
.ts.
Perfect.
And in this one, what are you doing? Get away from me. Why don't you like this?
I'm confused that I can't even see it. What happened here? Is it out one level? No, it seems fine.
Okay, so I'm just going to look in this one. I'm going to copy paste to get us started and collapse this. We'll say chat name instead of counter name.
Oh, okay. I think what's going on is when we can do this. You might have to there we go. Great. Perfect.
Oh, I just needed to save this because it was missing like this piece or something.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. But that's a bug. When you create a new file that's empty, it should be a problem. So that's helpful.
Or no, let's do chat.
Why can't I see this? Get chat.
Did it not show up for you in the
out of sync or something? I might just be following you now. I've got Convex there. Anyway, we don't need me. You're set. Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to shrink this up just a little bit more so that we have a little more real estate over here. And so now I have, let's see, my chat name, and then this is going to be chat doc, and I want the chat, right? Not counter.
Yeah, that sounds great. And now, so previously this was set up with all the singleton junk. Now, only a single row. Now probably going to want it to be it's a simpler one now. It is await db dot query chat table dot collect, which is just get every item.
Do I not want to still have a chat log? Or you know what? You're right. Let's not worry about it. Let's get the collection.
And this will still be a log. I'm imagining if every chat message is another row in this table, then we just want to get all the rows and just come right out.
And so this is going to be actually objects, right?
Yeah, I would say an array of, and we're going to be lying about it regardless because we don't have a schema. But yeah, object array sounds great.
Okay, so then I don't need a chat name.
Perfect.
So our query just got a lot simpler. And if our chat
doc will never be null.
Chat doc will never be null.
It might be an empty array, but those render great.
Yeah, empty arrays are easy. So then this gives us...
might call it chat messages or chats or messages or something instead of chat doc. Because now we have multiple documents.
Oh, you're right. Okay, so now we've got our messages, and in here, I should be able to swap out use query, use mutation, and now this one is going to be get chat, and it doesn't have a second argument, and it doesn't return null. So then I get my messages. It still
may return undefined on that initial render. So if you want, we can always do proper loading states, or what you did works great.
Okay, so then we just messages dot map, and then we'll get a message, and we'll do one of these, and we'll bring this thing in there.
Perfect.
And then I can do a message dot author.
And we're just making up a schema now. Perfect. Author sounds great.
And message dot message. Great. Why am I double bracketing? There we go.
And now we get into it may be time to create a schema if we start getting annoyed with these, or we just type it as any and move on with our day.
For now, let's just to get us through.
Perfect. I'm on board with that.
We'll do one of these.
Is a tool, and we can bend it to our will. Yeah.
Yes, and we'll go. We will fix this later, but for now we're just making stuff up, right? And then I guess we need to set a min width on our chat.
Okay.
So we'll just do a width. If I can type 100%. There we go.
Sweet.
Okay, so now we have our get chat. So then the piece that I need to do next is in here. I'm going to copy paste this one and call it add chat message.
Great.
And we will think about this a little bit. So I don't need to do this part anymore.
We need very few of these. Yeah. We need the insert still.
I don't need a counter doc. I don't need the replace, and I don't need a name.
I guess these can be author and body or something.
I guess, because we could even do...
or just the whole message. Yeah, that works great.
Author is going to be a string, or message is going to be a string, and that means I need this one to be message, not message. Okay, so then we get our author. And what did I call this one? Our get chat. We called it chat table. So we're going to chat table. Honestly, just yeet.
Just stick it in. Great. Perfect. Oh, I guess. Oh no, it's message. Perfect. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
great.
so I'm typing it here, right?
Yeah,
So
beautiful. Right. Sorry. Yeah, I read it as destructuring, but yeah, just
so
type it.
that's
Perfect.
way easier than what I thought, but it doesn't like something. What don't you like? Failed to
We
compile,
may
failed to
have
read
to,
from source.
if we look at the console, or like the terminal where it's running the. See, what are we writing about? Type increment counter
Import
copy.
increment counter copy. Oh, it like did a thing. Hold on.
So it looks like there must be a file called increment counter space copy.
I think what
guess.
ended up happening was when I duplicated this, it was.
Oh, sure. Okay, got it.
So
So
do
you
I
might
need
just
to
restart it.
stop and restart?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is great. So this is great. We have we just wrote this little this live dev thing, and we've got folks that worked on the like sync engines at Dropbox. So like we know we can watch files. We know we can do it right. But yeah, this is great.
Okay, so we want to add a chat message.
Perfect.
And
Yeah.
this gives us add message. Or I guess we can even just call it add chat message. And I don't need that piece, right?
Yep.
Because what I can do down here is
yeah.
on submit.
Yeah.
We're going to event, and then we'll do one of these. We'll event prevent default, and then we can get. I guess we can.
Did you do it by ID? Is that right? Or?
Yeah, we can just do like const data equals new form data event target, right? Event target?
I didn't know about this. This is great. Yeah.
I think this is it. And then we can do the new message is author will be data.get name, and message will be data.get message. And form data is freaking magical. So then we can add chat message and we send in our new message.
Perfect. Yeah.
Now, theoretically speaking.
Right. We just wrote too many lines of code for I mean, maybe you can do this. For me, it's too many lines of code to actually work.
HTML form element. Okay, I screwed this up. So event dot crap, what's the does anybody remember what the form element is on a submit?
Moving now. Okay, we've got the event, and then we say event dot.
It is new form data, and then it's event dot
get data on submit.
It's not
form
target.
Event.
I could have.
Okay, form data, new form data on the form element, and the form. That looks like what you wrote.
Should have been target, right? Maybe it should be current target.
Yeah.
That likes current target. Let's see what happens.
Great.
So then I get my new message, which it says could be null. So let's do this.
Write some defaults or whatever.
Let's do this. If not new message dot author, or like obviously we can't have.
Well, great client side validation.
Yeah,
this helps users.
We don't want any mess. So we'll just do nothing if you don't have the information in, and you, how dare you? Does not. So you're just going to be.
But the not should get the author, right?
You're both just going to be strings. That's what you get.
Perfect.
Okay, so we're just when in doubt, hit it with a hammer.
Absolutely. Okay, so. And this does, this suggests the whole like server side authentication, right? It's like, yes, you want to do this stuff on the client side. You ought to also do it on the server side. Probably not going to do that right now, but that's a whole world of stuff. Great. Okay, so maybe this works. It might even go all the way through. But if it doesn't, we can look at the dashboard to figure out.
Oh, I don't have a submit button.
Well, this... Oh no, and it's a text area.
It works if I hit enter on there. So let's add a submit button. So we'll do a button, type submit, and we'll
pretty good. First try.
Behold, message.
My bucket.
Okay, now the real moment of truth here.
You already had your moment of truth. It already worked.
It did already work, but now I want to see, did it it did indeed persist. So
Okay,
we did it,
cool,
y'all.
great.
Like, check it out. And if I try to send it empty or I send it incomplete, right? It doesn't work.
Great.
Wait. Make sure my submit button actually does work. It does indeed work. So,
Cool.
yeah, we just built a dang chat. So let's deploy this.
Great.
Okay, so I'm going to git add everything. Let's see. I probably shouldn't include the generated.
No, I would.
I should.
I mean, you can set up it to do it in your CI environment to
Okay.
regenerate it, but I think it's nice to just.
So we've got all these pieces. So I'm going to git commit. We'll say chat is working. Let's create a new repo. Let's create this one.
Ooh, this is advanced magic. Wow. Don't have to click buttons.
So I can just hit that. We're going to push an existing local loop repo. That's this one. I'm going to give it this name, and it's public. I do want to add a remote. It's going to be called origin, and
this is so good. This is wow.
Okay. And now, because I'm using the Starship terminal, I can just click this button, and here's our repo. So if you all want to check it out, you can go here, and then I'm going to head over to Netlify.
Yeah, let's do it.
And let's get this thing live. So I'm going to go add a new site. We're going to import an existing project, connect to GitHub. I don't need the Netlify stuff today, so I can just continue. And then I'm going to choose my Learn with JSON, and let's search for Convex. Got like 400 sites in here, so you know, there it is. All right, and we've got a main. It sees that it's a next site, so it's going to automatically do all the stuff that we need to do. So I'm just going to deploy this thing.
Cool. And we have little instructions for how to deploy with Netlify, but I think we can pull through without them.
Do I need to set any environment variables, or does Convex know?
We need both an environment variable and we need a custom build command.
Okay, so let me head over to my environment variables, and I'm just going to use the new experience because it's dope. And I need to add an environment variable, and that environment variable that I need is
this. Let's see. It's called Convex deploy key, and you can get it on your dashboard.
On my dashboard.
If you have a safe way to, I mean, not that this is the, it'd be fine.
Let me pull off. I'm going to, oh, okay. Let me show everybody what this looks like. So I just clicked on settings, and there's a button to generate a deploy key. So I'm going to come over here, click that button. I have it.
Sweet.
And now I'm going to go back to data and pull this up here. And then here I have, it's called Convex deploy key.
Under deploy, under key, yep.
Okay. We'll just keep it in all scopes for now. Make sure this is hidden. And there's the key. Okay, so I've created my deploy key. And then what was the custom command? Where do I find that?
Yeah, the custom build command. So if you, on the docs, if you look at hosting Netlify, we've got
hosting Netlify.
Down here it says custom build command. It's something like, just run npx convex deploy and then do the build. Yeah,
I gotcha.
Exactly.
Okay, so back.
So this is when you push, we're going to deploy whatever functions you pushed so that your front end and your back end are in sync.
Okay, so here's my build command. So I'm just going to override that, save it. Great. And then we head back over to deploys. So this one worked, but it's going to be missing things. So I'm just going to deploy again. And we're off and running.
Yeah. Are there any thoughts on? I mean, it was helpful to hear, both a few things we ran into, but like other things I would add to this next would be, all right, we have, we're doing the bare minimum, which is whatever is submitted by a client, we're just stuffing in a database. And in general, it'll work, right? There are some limits to what types you can stick in a database. I'm starting to get uncomfortable not having a schema, so I might add a schema. Then the other piece I'd look at is like those queries, like we're kind of doing a very useful but least interesting possible query, which is, give me every row of this table. And a fun part about Convex is we could now make it so that, say, let's only show the last 5 messages or something. Or we could
Mm-hmm.
say, when you send a message, disallow it if that same user has sent another message in the last 10 seconds, which wasn't going to work great for us because we're letting users decide who they are every time they
Mm-hmm.
submit a message. But you can take that application code that makes your chat app special or makes it not a chat app or whatever, and stick it in those functions, and it's a good iteration process.
Actually, let's rename this site. So I'm going to rename this
Oh
to
yeah.
Convex Reactive Toy, and I'm going to save. And now, chat. Here's the thing, though. Keep it clean, because if anybody does anything bad, I'm shutting this whole thing down, and you're going to ruin it for everybody. So, but like, get in there, add some chats. Like, let's play, right? Like, this now works, right? Like, we've got
Sweet.
we've got some really cool stuff. So I'm already seeing a bug. We need to clear the form once the form submits.
Oh, smart. Yep.
But otherwise, like, this is really fascinating how quickly we were able to put together a real live chat. And now we get to see the moment of truth. Here's where every chat app breaks down, is when somebody posts the next message. My scroll, you have to scroll, right?
Gotta scroll down. Yeah.
Although it does look like now that I'm scrolled to the bottom, maybe it's going to stick. Let's see. Nope.
No,
Still gotta go down. Right. But so this is the stuff that I think is really fascinating, is how quickly we're able to go and put these things together. And also how spread out everybody is. Istanbul, Philippines. Is this PH like Philadelphia? Baltimore, like it's so wild. Romania, dang, this is so cool. But so yeah, check out like how much we were able to do and how quickly, and how much work it actually is to try to implement something like this in another stack. That's the piece that really gets me excited when we start talking about these sorts of apps and projects and tools. Is it, we're like, I didn't have to go and think about what reactivity was going to look like. I didn't have to go think about how was I going to write the piece that was going to listen for the database update and then do the requery and then do this whole thing.
Totally.
This is the kind of stuff that just feels, this is when I was telling you earlier that this sort of felt like magic. This is the magic, because we spent less than 30 minutes. We did like 25 minutes of coding. And in that 25 minutes of coding, we built a full chat app. It looks like it was designed by my dad, who's an old C guy, and it's definitely got a lot of edge cases and bugs. And we want, all we need user account verification, and we need we need a lot to still go in here. But how freaking quickly were we able to get through what I would consider to be the boring part, which is like tying all of this back end stuff together. Right? That to me is really incredible.
Now, if I could push one of our newer features, which is mostly to emphasize, when I see a chat app, I think maybe that's transient data, right? Maybe it is not living in the database forever. Because another thing you could do is have a WebSocket server that doesn't have persistent state, or it's moderately persistent. It's just kept in memory or something. So if you could open the dashboard in a tab next to this one, we'll see both that we have all of that. We've got all that information, but also we have, this data can be modified. So great, we've got this one open.
Right. So here's my two apps side by side. One of them's a private browser window.
Cool.
So we're incognito
could you
over here.
Open the Convex dashboard?
Dashboard. Nope. Dashboard.
Where's this guy? Yeah. Click on, oh, that's funny. Refresh this. We're so excited about reactivity, but you may have to refresh this here. Oh, you know what? It's because we're doing this in, so if you hit the thing at the top, go over to prod, here are our messages. We can modify these, right?
Okay.
It's not, presumably you're probably going to build your own admin interface, but if you can, find one of these that we can see on both screens and you double click on it, you can change what it says there. And that is, for me, that emphasizes that I don't know, this is mutable data. Presumably, normally you would write mutations, maybe you make admin mutations for doing moderation or something. But the idea that you can just double click on one of those messages and change the text of it and then see that update live in the app is pretty fun. So right, but not a great idea to just be like, we can just change it's working to it's not working or whatever, and that will, right, yeah. Yeah, perfect.
How the tables have turned, chat. Oh, I've been waiting to do that for a long time. But so this is like, and I love that I didn't have to refresh anything. And when I go back over to our app here, here's the published one. It's all updated, right? Like this, I think, is incredible because it just shows like, so again, moderation, right? If this was live chat, we had a bigger audience, the chat was full of terrible people, which it's clearly not, then we would be able to very quickly, hit the moderate button and it would remove the message. And I don't have to go and build that. I don't have to, there's so many cool things that we can do, right? I find that to be just absolutely fascinating. Like I love the amount of boilerplate and toil that just got lifted off my plate trying to build a reactive app. So that gets me really excited about Convex and sort of what doors this opens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's a different. So I guess we use this, have a reactive backend style both at Dropbox and the desktop client, not on the website so much, but on the desktop client we use this. At Observable we had this for live text editing, and at Reduct we had this for most of the things. It is an interesting. I find it a good way to build applications, but it is different. It is, when everything is automatically reactive, you mostly write simpler code because you don't have all these change detectors. You don't have all this like integration with all this polling, but it is, the idea that anything on the page could change at any time. You have to hew even closer to the kind of rules of React, to the thinking about these transitions where it's like, oh, another message might appear here without anyone having done anything. And that sounds common, but the UI could change because this user's permissions could change. So there's lots of this space that has been explored before, but that we're exploring too of, gosh, if anything could happen at any time, does that make the front-end developer responsible for any state change that could happen? And somewhat you're just surfacing things that were there already, because instead of the user sitting at an invalid page now, they will immediately go to the new page. But it's a different way to think about developing apps where like, oh yeah, anytime.
I think that is a really fun, it gets me thinking about cool things that we could build that I would have previously de-scoped because I would have said, I don't have the time to actually maintain that infrastructure. Like to build a fun interactive piece of an app, if it is fun, I want it to exist. But if it accidentally turns into this huge maintenance nightmare, I'm eventually going to almost immediately, I'm going to crash on my willingness to keep building it because it just becomes too much. You find yourself in these scenarios where like I built a demo, that demo is fun, people enjoy it, but it breaks every 6 hours or every 6 days. And so you're always getting, GitHub issues and stuff like that. And you just kind of give up because it's too complicated to run the thing. So a lot of what I would consider to be very creative and very joyful ways of using the web get stifled by the cost and overhead of just the boilerplate, the foundational technology. So what I really like is this is going to allow me to unlock absolute chaos with a bunch of things that I've been thinking about for a long time that I just wouldn't build because there are too many steps, there are too many links in the chain. So already got some schemes, got some ideas, things that we can do. What about y'all, chat?
That's great to hear.
We got about 5 minutes left. So chat, if you've got questions, throw them in now. Vinny, y'all should go clip that evil laugh because I do think that should be a fun, that would be a good alert if somebody wants to grab that. Okay, so while we're waiting for the chat to come up with any questions they have, where should someone go if they want more information? Like if they
Sure.
saw what we did today, they want to get deeper. What's the next step?
Yeah, I'd say join the Discord because we'd love to chat about this stuff. We're still, I mean, lots of communities are good at this, but we're still early enough that we really are excited to hear from people about, hey, I'm using this thing. Oh, this thing broke, or oh, I wish I had this feature. So please join this. Yeah, it's I don't know where you found that link, but that link, that's
It's
great.
up in the community. Actually,
Great.
let me cop the
Perfect.
the named link here.
Yeah, look at right, perfect. Oh, thanks, and you already posted. Yeah, so and we'd love to hear about what you're doing with this. I could say like, oh, well, a lot of information is in the docs, and we kind of did we did the speed run where we jumped straight to the quick start, and that is a fun thing to do if you're, if you like poking around and trying things. But you can also go through the tutorial. I'm working on a tutorial right now, hoping to publish it tomorrow-ish, where we just an even simpler like, look here. Something like this. We start with this, and it's more of a chat app. But then here is a quick code tour, kind of like we went through today with here's this line, here's what they're doing, here's how to integrate this. So I'd say the docs are, check out the docs, but you don't need to have read every doc on here before you ask questions, because that's not a reasonable way to expect people to learn technology. So we'd love to hear any questions in the Discord, trying this stuff out, see how it goes. As you saw, like the steps are not too bad to get something running, and then you can kind of start iterating from there.
Yeah, super fun. And so since you have the tweet, or I guess the tutorial coming out, I'm going to say everybody go give Tom a follow on Twitter to make sure that you are aware of that when it goes live.
Absolutely will. Yeah.
Getting some love from, hey, Fada, how you doing? Bognog is asking, does this work with Vue?
Sure. Basically, no. I mean, yes. We, like I have done a lot of like, look, I can look, this works with Svelte. Look, this works with these things. But right now, the core experience is just, hey, do you have a React app? Previously, it had been, do you have a React app with TypeScript? Because surely that's how many of us have professionally created sites before. So we focused on that. We are now spreading out a bit and saying like, oh, no, you totally doesn't need to be TypeScript. Like this also works without TypeScript. Let's highlight that experience. And similarly, like our CEO made an unofficial solid client the other day, and it's it ends up being about 50 lines of code to write one of these clients. So I'd love it if you check in the Discord and say, hey, I'd like this to work with you. We have some snippets where people have done this, but officially we are just saying like, no, here's the React client. While we're still changing so much, that's the part that we want to hear from people about. But I don't know. So there's lots of discussions. I mean, it's the stuff that you were talking about before, where, how wide do you go? Do you build something that developers want, or do you kind of start on your checklist of the enterprise features? We have a lot of discussions about is it time to branch out? And so far, what we're doing is informally, we'll say, oh, cool. This weekend, I made a little Rust client. That's pretty cool. I had a stream with Lee the other day where I made Lee that works here we made a little Python client, so you can talk to Convex from Python. But right now, all those are unofficial, and it's very doable. But you're going to be doing more work because the code generation experience is not there yet.
Right. Okay. And so the code generation, that's what gives us use query and use mutation. So the piece that you have to build in the port is the implementation of use query and use mutation. Is that correct?
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
You need something. We have a client that lets you say, I want to subscribe to this thing. Every time it updates, tell me about it. Or more often, what you want is every time there are a series of updates, please batch them and apply them consistently. And that's the piece that, when we did it with Solid, it was about 50 lines of you got to do a little bit of bookkeeping where you say, oh, these 3 queries have updated. How do I, in Vue, update the data store to say they have updated? And how do I do that in a batched way?
Got it.
I need to tell Vue, no, it's not 3 changes. Like one of these queries updating is not valid without the other one. So you can do pretty simple stuff where you just run some code every time it updates. But if you want the full experience, it is consistent views, and that takes a little more code.
I just realized I didn't check. Are we wrapping in a? We are. We're wrapping in a provider.
Yep.
So
exactly
that's okay. So that's the piece that kind of pulls all this together. So what we're doing is to use Convex, you're providing a global store, and the hooks that here are use query, use mutation are they're tying into that global store and then doing the live updates. And so as I am writing a plugin for Solid, Vue, Svelte, etc., what I would be building is okay. So the way that Vue does a provider like this is like this. So I need all the hooks from Convex into this global data store, and then whatever the equivalent of a use query and a use mutation hook need to be written so that the Vue client behaves the same way across all of these different frameworks. So this is a great, and the thing that's exciting is, like, if you look here, y'all, this is early days, right? And the thing that's really exciting about early days is if you're looking to get involved in a community, the very best time is right now. The thing works, but it's missing a ton of features because the community's not there yet. And if you look at the way that a lot of people have really established their open source careers, it's through being part of these initial explosions of, like, okay, who's going to build the Convex Svelte client? Who's going to build the solid client? Who's going to build the Vue, the, you know, whatever you want to put it. And that is a way to establish some expertise. It's a way to give back to the community. It's a way to, really dive deep and learn how this sort of maintenance works. And it's before we get to the point where all of the low hanging fruit is solved and now becoming a maintainer means getting ultra deep. Right? Like, and that's one of the really hard parts is, like, you can't just become a React contributor today. There's so much context and nuance and mess in the history of what React, the library, has been. You have to really, really want it to get in there. But to go write 50 lines of code to hook up a Vue global store into Convex and, like, release that client, that's a cool opportunity. And that's something that I hope at least some of you go and chase down if you've been looking for an excuse to get into open source. With that, Tom, this has been great. Anything else that you want to share with folks before we start wrapping up?
Not much. I mean, we second all the stuff you said. Like, this is early enough. You can build the X client, and it would be really exciting. And I'd love to work with you if you do that. Like, if you're in this Discord, let me know. I have, some bandwidth to do some pair programming, or some, like, hey, cool, let's build our first thing with Convex. Again, because it's early days, I get to do fun things like, oh yeah, I'm just going to work with the user building an app today. And then out of that might come a feature request, and we might find a bug like we did today. So that's really fun stuff. And I'd love to chat with any of you that are interested.
Excellent. All right, y'all. Well, I think we're going to call this one a success. So this episode, like every episode, has been live captioned. We've had Vanessa here with us today from White Coat Captioning. Thank you very much, Vanessa. And that's made possible through Netlify, NX, New Relic, and our brand new sponsor, Pluralsight. So make sure while you're checking out things on the Learn with Jason site that you go and take a look at the schedule. I'm actually going to do a bit of a dealer's choice on Thursday. So I don't have a guest and I don't know what I should do. So I'm going to put up a poll on Twitter for what I should do on Twitter or on Thursday. So make sure you head over there and weigh in on what I should do. I think I'm going to put in options like play Fortnite. So yeah, definitely weigh in on that. And add this to, like, subscribe on YouTube, like on Twitch. Like, all of these things are they feel silly to say out loud, but they do make a big difference on whether or not other people get shown this content, whether or not we can reach more people. So please do like, share, subscribe, all those good things, because we've got an amazing list of guests coming up. Like, we're going to learn a lot. Got a bunch of people who I have not put up on the site yet, so we'll get that done. And please do let me know if there's anybody that you want to see on the show that you haven't seen on the show, or somebody you want to bring back that you love learning from. I'm always open to that. Just hit me up, LWJ Show on Twitter. With that, Tom, I think we've got a great episode in the can here. So let's go find somebody to raid. Let's see. Ben's going live. Let's go see Semantics Dev. Okay. Ben, thank you very much. Chat, as always, it's been a pleasure. Let's go find somebody to raid. We'll see y'all next time.